Trucker kicking off our conversation with downtown. Downtown, pretty busy place last night as Ragbri rolled through. It went pretty well from all we can tell. There weren't too many bikers arrested. Actually, none that I know of. I do want to thank the folks who make this show possible, the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club, also Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility, and the Great March for Climate Action. And sponsoring this segment of our program, Gateway Market and Cafe. I also want to thank the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit coming up in November and Diana's Wedding Cakes. We've got a few things to talk about later in the program, including a visit from Sarah Truitt. She's a city councilwoman in Osceola who's involved with promoting the Big Latch On. This is an event that is worldwide, but with a specific gathering here in Des Moines to promote the importance of breastfeeding. We'll talk with her later in the program. We've also got a little bit of ground to cover on the ongoing wildfire problem, the ongoing problems that Branstad is having with the shovel that he is using to dig his hole deeper and deeper. We're also going to talk a little bit about Steve King's latest foray into crazy talk, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Polk County courts project. Well, there's a proposal, of course, to expand the courts here in Polk County. That's going to be on the ballot this coming fall. But we're going to look to the next county west here and talk with Dallas County Supervisor Mark Hansen about a similar undertaking that's on the ballot apparently in Dallas County as well. Mark, welcome to the show.
Be here.
And you're on the Board of Supervisors. Your
correct.
Third term, is that right?
Third term, just starting.
So you must be doing something right.
I was unopposed the last election, so,
Or maybe you're doing something wrong and people think, hey, let's sentence this guy to another term. Let's send him back for another 4 years.
I ran willingly, and felt as if there were some things that still needed to be accomplished. So I chose to rerun, and I'm glad I did.
And what is, beyond the question of the expansion of the court system, what is on your agenda in terms of what Dallas County needs to accomplish?
Well, I mean, we've seen a number of things over the 8-year history. I mean, we've had discussion about an airport. We've had a discussion about damming the Raccoon River up. We've had circumstances where entities wanted to locate animal confinement feeding operations. We had a sheriff that got in trouble. We had Project Destiny. We had all those things, right?
Yeah.
And we had our courthouse floors
that
were caving in. We had the gambling vote. But a couple of things that I'm very proud of, and you would appreciate this, is the completion of the Raccoon River Valley Trail and the 72-mile loop that's in Dallas County. We try to work with our small towns and communities to still promote that and make sure that it's a good spot to live and play.
Yep.
But we've got growth issues in Dallas County, and that's probably why I'm here to talk to you today. Yeah.
Well, and we could have an entire show on every one of those topics, but let's talk about the court's expansion. There's been some controversy, but before we talk about that, lay out exactly what is proposed and why it's needed.
Well, first of all, it's not court's expansion necessarily. This is a space needed to run county government, and
some of which is courts, but not entirely.
Well, absolutely, it's partially courts, but as I was elected first time in 2004. And that's the same year we got the news that the courthouse floors were failing and caving in. And we saved that courthouse in Adel, the beautiful Bedford, Indiana limestone courthouse, and we added 30% more space into that building. And so, yes, that's where the courts are operating in Dallas County, but we still occupy the second floor of that building with county space currently. Okay. But Dallas County, as you know, had 40,000 people in the 2000 census. Today we have 72,000 people. We've added 32,000 more people. And when you've got those population trends happening, you've got to have space to serve the community.
Right.
And a lot of people don't even know what a county does, and there's a whole laundry list of services that we could go through if you'd like to. Or you want me to hit some of the high notes, or no?
That's okay. I think most of my audience probably is somewhat aware of the functions of county government, but the growth. I mean, that's 32,000 people in how many years?
13 years.
And almost.
And we had a study done for us in 2006 by Carter Goebel.
So you almost doubled the population in
yes.
just a little over a decade.
In fact, that new growth is more than 77 counties in Iowa have.
Yeah.
That's just new population to Dallas
Is
County.
that good?
Growth is good.
All growth is good?
Well, I mean, in this particular case, most of the growth is concentrated in the Waukee School District.
Is that good? I mean, is it possible to overwhelm any particular community?
From a standpoint of a taxpayer contributing into county government, I'd share with you that last year Dallas County took 13.5 cents of $1 taxation. We were the lowest of all 99 counties as far as what percentage of tax the county took of that $1.
Right.
So growth is good in that sense that we've got more people to spread that tax across. However, growth is also bad because growth means we're out of space for the jail, we're out of space for elections, we're out of space for courts, we're out of space for Department of Motor Vehicles, we're out of space for human service issues.
Okay.
And that's why we've got a bond issue that's coming up August 6th.
Right. I mean, there's some logic to that, regardless of whether you think the growth is all good. And I'm of the mindset that not only do local communities have an obligation to their existing residents and to their environment and their resource base to put some restrictions on growth. I mean, I think we have to do that. I mean, I will disagree very strongly with the notion that all growth is good. All growth is only good if you have a scenario where you have unlimited opportunities for expansion. You know, and I mean, what is the growth limit for the planet?
Well, you know, you and I don't disagree on a lot of things. I mean, as I look at Dallas County, 90% of the land mass is agriculture. You know, 10% is really cities and suburbia.
Given how good the land is, that's probably not a bad use.
Well, my point
really
is,
good
do
quality.
you really want to see that creep going westward that takes prime farm ground out of production?
Yeah.
And, you know, West Des Moines and Urbandale and Clive, as they've gone west from 35 and into Dallas County, that's where the large population growth has come.
And that's a bigger issue. I mean, your point, though, that growth has happened, and nearly doubling of the population in about 15 years, and you've got an increased demand for services, and you've got to have a place to put those services. I understand that. So where do you want to put them?
Well, this proposal, it's a $22 million total project cost. The main part of it is a administration public safety facility that is $18.2 million. The question on the ballot, actually, and I'll just read it so I don't get it wrong, is, shall the County of Dallas, State of Iowa, issue its general obligation bonds in an amount not exceeding the amount of $16,850,000 for the purpose of constructing, erecting, equipping, and furnishing a new administration/public safety building to be constructed on county-owned property? That's the question. So I said it's a $22 million total project. Mm-hmm. That includes the building of the facility, which includes jail and sheriff space, as well as space for administrative offices. And that frees us up then to repurpose the courthouse for the additional courtroom that we will be required to provide once we pop the 80,000 population, which is only a couple of years away. It allows us to repurpose our human service areas for public health, mental health, Department of Human Services. They will reoccupy the buildings that we still own in downtown Adel, which is part of this program.
Right.
And we have $6 million available in a capital fund that we are using to buy down the actual ask of the voters on this bond. So, I already shared with you that we're a low tax county, but what you didn't probably hear on that conversation, because I didn't tell you, was that Dallas does not have local option sales tax. Dallas does not have any gaming revenue that supports it.
Yeah, well, can say
and we've got $500 million, $500 million in tax increment financing that the county doesn't tap. Now, eventually, as it's released to us, but what I'm saying is that we've got a very low tax rate in Dallas County because of that growth and spreading it across the population. But now we've got these services that we've got to provide, and we don't have the space to do it.
And the diversion of tax revenue through tax increment financing that can take a healthy bite out of your county budget.
Yes, it can.
I'm still in shock that the legislature has not developed the cojones necessary to address that issue, because it's so clearly a tax shift. Anyway, that's another conversation. Folks, if you'd like to be a part of this dialogue, you're welcome to join us at 244-0077, 244-0077. You can also email me at fallonforum@gmail.com. Okay, so the existing courthouse.
Yep.
Fabulous building. I mean,
Thank
it
you.
is one of the most beautiful courthouses in Iowa.
Thank you.
And it recently received a facelift.
It did.
And that was quite an expensive bit of plastic surgery. What did that cost to do that?
Well, if you put it in perspective, not so bad. It was a $10 million bond issue to fix and refurbish Her Majesty that sits in the middle of 8L. And it's a 1902 building constructed with Indiana limestone. It's got marble from Tennessee as far as wainscoting. William Wagner, a very famous architect in Iowa for historical recreation of buildings, has done the third floor district courtroom in that building. But we had the floors caving in, made of haydite, which was a product that, lack of a better term, was kind of a cross between concrete and paper mache over a wire mesh.
Does not sound like the the type of construction material you would want to recommend.
It was.
How did they get away with that back then?
Well, it was in use as early as the early 1900s, but it wasn't patented until 1907. Well after, and it was a new Cavalier flooring system that allowed larger distances between joists. So when it started crumbling around the wire mesh, and you've got danger of people falling through the floors or heavy weight objects coming through the floors, we brought in structural steel to support the entire second floor and the third floor. And you can imagine what that project was. New concrete floors. We made it ADA accessible. We took all the ramps out on both sides, so it's one level entry in, put the security in for the courthouse. But the point is, we added 30% more space in there too, which actually allowed us to buy some time in this whole need for space project.
So the 30% additional space, that's quite a change. Again, your population has grown 50% almost. Space increased 30%. You've got another 20% to deal with. Where's the other 20% going?
We're only talking courts. I mean, let's talk.
We're only talking courts.
Let's talk about the jail building, okay?
Okay.
The jail building itself was constructed for 31 cells. And we have a state exemption for another 15. So we can do about 45 in the jail occupancy, right? However, it's not up to code in the sense that when you double bunk into that facility, you're supposed to have square footage available to actually have double occupancy within cells.
Okay.
But the bigger problem with that, Ed, is that if you've got one female and you've got one juvenile and you've got one mental condition, so to speak, they cannot be mixed into general population. So the female could take a cell block of 6. So could the juvenile. So could the mental condition. Depending upon what our occupancy looks like, that jail is not suitable, and we could be full with 25 people. Now, when it was built also with a E911 dispatch center in it, which in 2008 got moved out of that building. So that's separated from our sheriff's command and control. It also had a training room for all the patrol deputies. It also had a conference room up on the upper floor. But if you know public safety, the sheriff in Dallas is responsible for all investigations, evidence, civil division. There is no training room there currently. There is no space to do conferencing, and we are completely out of space in that jail building. In fact, we are sending prisoners to Polk County and paying daily rates and transport
Polk
costs.
County was sending prisoners, inmates, or whatever we want to call them. They were being sent out of state. But the truth is, I'm not sure that was not a bad idea in terms of when you weigh that against the cost of a new jail, building it and then maintaining it. Hey, now I've got to run to a break.
Sure.
But I want to ask, and when we come back, I want to talk about whether there is opposition to this and what they're saying. I know it's probably not entirely fair to have you voice the opposition viewpoint or to not give the opposition a chance to voice their viewpoint, but they certainly are welcome on the show. But I assume there is some opposition to this in your county.
There's some.
All right, well, let's talk about that when we come back. And, folks, you're always welcome to join this conversation as well. 244-0077 or 855-244-0077. I again want to thank Gateway Market and Cafe for sponsoring this segment of our show. I don't know whether, Mark, you make it into Des Moines ever to shop at Gateway Market, but we are very proud of our local grocery store in Sherman Hill. Also, again, a great place for breakfast, lunch, and or supper. I want to also thank Community CPA and Associates on Ingersoll Ave, now the 10th largest accounting firm in the state. And we'll actually talk with the owner, Ying Sa, later this week regarding the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit. I also want to thank Hawk Restaurant at East 5th and Walnut in the East Village neighborhood. Hawk, where 90% of the food they serve, comes from local farms and local producers. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day one of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
That's Mr. Baber's Neighbors, folks. We're back to our conversation with Dallas County Supervisor Mark Hansen about the proposed expansion of county government, one county west here of Polk County. Got a few other things to talk about today as well, and later in the program, Sarah Truitt is going to join us to talk about the Big Latch On. This is a global event that brings awareness to the importance of breastfeeding. I do want to thank the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit for sponsoring this segment of our program and remind people to sign up for a great opportunity to learn how to grow or even start your business. It's going to be November 9th at Drake University. I also want to thank Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering, one of the fantastic local restaurants that support this program. Tally's is in Beaverdale. And again, not only do you have fantastic opportunities for patio seating on the rooftop and on the street level, but they've got a catering service as well. I also want to thank Dr. Kim Holding, who's been a veterinarian for over 30 years and works out of Story County Veterinary Clinic. Kim he's also provides some pretty good and pointed commentary on ag-related issues from time to time, and I always look forward to having her on this program. All right, back to our conversation. Mark Hansen in the studio with us, and we are discussing the county government expansion in Dallas County. That issue will be on the ballot this fall. And I'm interested, of course, in getting both sides, if there are more than one side.
It's going to be on the ballot August 6th.
August 6th, sorry, really
within
soon.
2
Oh my
weeks.
gosh.
It is happening
I was
soon.
thinking fall, okay.
No, that's
August
the Polk
6th.
County one.
Right.
Yeah.
Why are you guys doing it in the summer when everybody's on vacation?
Well, there are only certain times of the year when counties can bring ballot initiatives. And if we'd have had our real opportunity, we thought that we really should have brought it forward in May.
But isn't that a form of voter suppression to do it at a time when a lot of people aren't paying attention or maybe gone?
Well, that's why we come on your show, to make sure that the voters out there are aware of these issues. And we've been very, very active.
Well, why not wait till November to do it? Why not do it in November?
Well,
People are used to voting.
I mean, I obviously you haven't heard the entire story, but we are out of space currently for elections. We are out of space in the jail. We are out of space
But
for
that can't wait
Department
till
of Human
November?
Services. Even if this passes, then you've got to improve the sites. You've got to get construction bids going.
But 3 months to assure greater voter participation.
Well, I mean, as you know, you've got same-day voter registration. We've allowed the early voting happening here. This is not something that is any intent to try to suppress anything. Just as you suggested, there may be some folks that are not all that crazy about the plan, and,
Yeah, so what-
and
I mean-
those folks would have just as good an opportunity if they can energize folks to say it's not a good plan.
Sure.
Then they've got
Sure.
just
This
an
is
equal
true.
opportunity as anybody else.
And
to
is
get
that
their message
happening?
out.
Are you seeing much opposition? I mean,
Well,
there's always the anti-tax crowd.
Well, you've always got what I'll call the cave voters, which
The what?
are the cave voters, the
Cave?
citizens against virtually everything. And I absolutely understand that the distrust in government, my insurance rates are going up, my gas prices are going up.
My dog died. My pickup truck's not
Right,
working.
but
I'm
and
gonna
we
vote
don't
against
have
this.
the time to really explain that we're a low tax county and that this is a very modest amount. In fact, on this particular scenario, Ed, if you're a $100,000 valuation, taxable valuation, after rollbacks and all that, this is $15 a year.
So what?
So it's $30 on 200,000. You can do the math.
So citizens against virtually everything. What are the anti-county?
Well,
government?
the big issue is, it's more of how is changing of county government moving to the Ortonville site as you've described, which is now in Adel, in the county seat town of Adel, where we've got 40 acres of ground on Highway 6.
That's
that
a
sits
2 miles outside of Adel proper.
Absolutely. And so the access to that property is on Hickman Road on Highway 6. It is easy access for the majority of the voters in the county that need county services.
But I mean,
the issue is there's an interest in trying to see the administrative spaces stay in the downtown Adel area.
Okay.
And we've looked at
when you say
5 different sites in and around the current courthouse
okay, so
facility.
on the main street itself or on the
on
town
the main
square?
town square scenario, yeah.
So what percent, if this plan is approved and the construction goes ahead as planned,
Yep.
how much of county government services will be at the courthouse and in the vicinity right around it?
Yeah, we will maintain the courthouse. We will maintain the old jail building. In fact, that's where the Department of Human Services will go and our archives division will go. We will maintain public health, mental health, and the attorney's office in downtown Adel.
Okay.
We will maintain the environmental health and our planning and zoning agency in downtown Adel.
Yeah.
We also own a few other buildings. Our engineering road department will also still be in downtown Adel. So
Right.
this means 125 county workers go, and it's really to free up the space on the second floor of the courthouse. And we haven't really talked about that yet, but we rent 4 buildings as well.
So is opposition based on? It's not based on land use. It's not based on where you're planning to cite the additional functions. It's based on the fact that citizens are being asked to pay more in taxes. Are there other arguments beyond that?
No, the argument is not that we don't need the space. The argument is anywhere but where you're planning to build.
And so it is land use. So what is the objection to the location?
Well, predominantly because not 100% of county services will stay in the county seat. It will still be in the county seat town of Adel, but we will not be everything on the square.
Yeah.
And,
I understand that too, because I mean, when you want to go access services, it's nice to go to one place.
Well, I do
It's
too.
also nice to keep it in the city proper, so you don't encourage urban sprawl. I mean, I look the Adel post office is now out of town, on the edge of town. You can't, pop into downtown Adel, do your shopping, do your courthouse activities, and go to the post office. That's a ways out of town now. I mean, not that far, but it's still not what you would
well, the
consider
grocery
a walking
store
distance.
and the
Sure.
and the post office and the city government themselves is not on the square.
Isn't that the beginning of what you would call urban sprawl? So when the services start spreading out from the core of the community.
I'm a huge supporter of downtown Adel, and downtown Adel Square is beautiful with Her Majesty sitting in the middle of that square.
I love how you refer to her as Her Majesty.
Well, that's what she is.
She is very
you
noble,
know,
yes.
and that's where all county government used to be at one point in time. So, if anything, we've had county sprawl on the square. And is that the right spot for a jail to be operating on?
Because you want businesses there.
You want,
right?
you want Adel, a beautiful town square, to be a Valley Junction type place, if you would, where you've got those interesting retail.
Well, ideally
we've
you
got
have
this population that'll come and support it. That's coming to the county.
Ideally, you have a combination of services, government services,
right.
And even more so,
So when you look at numbers of
opportunities.
people, we're about 50-50 maybe, the new building versus downtown, because all court and all court services, the departments that I've already shared with you, we will maintain all 4 buildings that we currently operate on the square. So we're not releasing any of them or vacating any of them. We will still provide a component to the overall health of the downtown region.
Right. So, is there a formal group organized to support the referendum, the ballot initiative?
There is.
And how much has that group raised?
Well, their last reporting, required state reporting, was less than $1,000, but I know that
Really?
they've raised more than that now.
And how about on the opposition side? What is the opposition raised, if anything? Do they have a formal organization?
There's an organization called Taxpayers for Responsible Spending, and
they think this is irresponsible spending.
and I don't know how that exactly happens, because if you go and look at the information, they've suggested that we really looked at the old high school that became a middle school for the school district,
Okay.
that the city of Adel was contemplating tearing it down and hauling it away at a cost of $250,000 and fixing the streets around that. Now, I don't know what the streets would have cost, but when they fixed the streets around the courthouse, they bonded for over $2 million on that. But that was going to be taxed to the citizens of Adel to make that a ready site. But if you watched the news last week, the ADM school district said, we're running out of space. We're moving our administrative offices out of the high school, and we're moving them into that school building. So the school was never offered to the county. The school
Right.
was never released. And if I'm an ADM taxpayer and I'm supporting that school, which is an asset for their community,
Right.
why would you freely give it to the county? It's not their responsibility. It is the county's responsibility, and the entire county, including the TIF districts that we
Right.
talked about,
Well,
because they pay into debt service.
If we can, we're going to try to line up somebody from the other side, just to, I always like to provide some balance to these conversations.
Sure.
But one more
But it's the
question.
administrative space there,
Gotcha.
and that group has no answer that I'm aware of for the jail and the public safety piece that we've spent a little time on. That is an absolute necessary. We've got our sheriff running E911 dispatch in one building, running emergency management in another area, and God forbid something would happen in downtown Adel where the Raccoon River all of a sudden made some consequences related.
Well, I'm surprised that hasn't happened.
I want that critical access point. We've got IT equipment. We've got E911.
Would this be in the floodplain?
No, it's up
Okay, good.
above.
All right,
It's
good.
out of the plane.
Because I mean, Polk County was not that smart. They took over the old Target building in the floodplain, spent, I want to say, $5 million renovating Target as a county building, and while that was going on, it flooded again. Of course, that didn't stop them from coming back and putting more money into it. And it's still in a floodplain. I'm just shocked that it hasn't been hit again, and I just think it's a matter of time before that happens. So I'm glad you're not doing that.
Technically, the buildings that we own are not in the floodplain, but in a worst-case scenario, we would be underwater. And if
well,
you know
see,
what
that may
if
be
you
a
know
bad
what the
idea.
county if you know what the county of Lynn had to go through,
Yeah.
and you know what the county of Grand Forks had to go through,
Grand Forks.
Red River, the north, between Minnesota and
Oh,
North
yeah,
Dakota.
sure,
I mean,
okay, yeah.
completely took the downtown of Grand Forks out, and all those critical aspects. And
So
look at what's happening in Iowa City and Council Bluffs. And
but you think this facility will be free of that risk? It doesn't-
absolutely, as far as
Well,
water risk, it's out.
Well,
It's out.
what if you get a flood that's many feet above the highest possible projection, as Lynn County did, as is happening more often now because of climate change?
Well, you're familiar with Dallas County to the extent that you knew where Monarch Manufacturing was.
Yeah,
And there's a R16 that goes north to Dallas Center.
Yep, I know
We're
pretty well.
we're 1 mile to the west of there. We're out of the river valley. We are
So
up
you're
on the
starting
hill.
to head up the hill there. Yeah, I know
Well,
that area.
not starting to head up the hill.
You're up the
we're
hill.
way up the hill.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, there's
Well, it would have to be-
there's no water issues
All
here.
right. All right. I got you. Good. Well, I'm happy to have more conversation about this. I mean, I think these issues are interesting. I know we want to have some conversation about the Polk County Courts expansion. A little history. I fought the expansion of the Polk County Jail. I led that fight years ago, and we won. We stopped it. It was a bad plan, and they came back with a better plan years later. So
For how much? 60 million?
I can't remember what it was now. The original plan was it's been long. It was 1996.
Well,
and it's been
let
long
me
enough.
just tell you a couple of things that I did about 3 years ago. Went and met with Sheriff McCarthy, and I toured the new jail, and I looked at that empty wing over there, and I said, could this be something that Dallas County could utilize even if we staffed it, so we
Yeah.
avoided some cost? But can I share one other thing on our project?
Okay.
All right. I just wanted to say that, I live in that Waukee School District. They've built 6 new elementary schools, 2 new middle schools, 1 new 8-9 building. They just opened bids for a new 8-9 building. They've already purchased ground for a high school, and a second high school in that district. And the County of Dallas has done that $10 million bond referendum. We need space. This is not a want. This is not a wish. This is a need for Dallas County. And by the time we build it out, we've got a couple of years additional leases that were in inadequate buildings to do county government work.
Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. I just hope that I don't have a strong opinion about it either way. I just hope Dallas County can get a handle on urban sprawl, because sprawl is we can have another conversation about that. But I sense we have some common ground on that as well. Some.
All right. Well,
Maybe.
thank you for having me.
All right, Mark.
No, I mean, I grew up in the Twin Cities, and I watched Apple Valley and Egan and Rosemount and all those areas grow, and that was over farmland as well.
Yeah.
It happens at a lot of places.
Thanks, Mark. Mark Hansen, folks, Dallas County Board of Supervisors. We're going
Thank you,
to
Ed.
switch gears and talk about breastfeeding really soon here. The big latch-on is coming to the world, and there'll be a gathering here in Des Moines on August 3rd. I got a few other issues to talk about today, including the reigniting problem with fires in the West and how Iowans are responding to that. And also, I'm afraid Steve King is at it again with more crazy talk. We'll talk about that as well. Again, I want to thank the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit for sponsoring this segment of our show. I also want to thank Sargent's Garage at 6th and College in Des Moines, where Graham Gormley and his wonderful team of mechanics have serviced 4 generations of Fallon mobiles. I also want to thank Dan Kelly and his real estate business in Newton. If you've got a home or business to sell or buy in Newton, give Dan Kelly a shout. And when we come back, we'll talk with Sarah Truitt, a city councilwoman from Osceola who is involved with the big latch on.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. The dawn of a new era begins. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Max Wellman bringing us back to our conversation, folks, the Max Wellman Trio. This segment of our show sponsored by the Fighting Burrito. That's City Councilman Matthew Goodman's dream. It's originally opened in Ames. There's also one now in Des Moines at 13th and Locust. And I love Fighting Burrito because if I'm feeling poor and hungry, I can combine those two needs in one visit for a fantastic custom-made burrito. Right around the corner from that, too, I want to mention the Ritual Cafe, place that is often a daily part of my ritual. Fantastic selection of teas. I don't drink coffee, but I'm told the coffee is great. I also love the smoothies, the paninis, and oftentimes they have fantastic music too on weekend evenings. We're going to switch gears, talking about something, maybe more controversial than spending $22 million to expand your county government. This is the issue of breastfeeding. The Big Latch-On was started in New Zealand quite a few years ago and moved and eventually found its way to the U.S. Of course, it landed first in Portland, Oregon. No surprise there. I think that was probably 2005, if memory serves. And the goal of the Big Latch-On is to kind of normalize public breastfeeding. And there is a gathering planned here in Des Moines in August, and I want to welcome Sarah Truitt to the program to tell us a little more about it.
Hi, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me here. Our event is scheduled for August 3rd. It's happening Friday the 2nd and also on the 3rd, but in Des Moines, it's only on the 3rd.
Across the world, it's
Yes.
either one of those 2 days,
Yes,
right?
locally, we chose Saturday thinking we'd have a better turnout and more people support it. At 10 o'clock at the Papa John's Sculpture Park downtown.
Okay.
That's where we're meeting.
And the intent is to have people, mothers, breastfeeding for 1 minute at 10:30 in whatever time zone you're in.
Exactly.
And how many people have participated in this in the past?
Last year we didn't do the event last year. I'm not sure what happened. 2 years ago I participated and I had a different child that I was nursing at the time, and there were about 50 of us, I think was about our goal. And so this year I've challenged us to either have 75, 100, something better than 50 this year. I'm thinking we can at least double that number.
Yeah. And the intent is to let people know that this is natural, normal, should not be an issue, because apparently there are still plenty of people who get all bent out of shape who get their shorts in a knot over a woman breastfeeding in public.
Exactly. The idea is to be seen. You know, we tried to choose a location where people would see us.
That's a good one.
Supporting one another. Yeah, exactly. It's out there. Where people feel supported, people see the event. We want to make sure that people know what it is, and feel like it's not a big deal. You know, it shouldn't be an issue. I will look forward to the day when we don't have to have these kinds of get-togethers.
Right.
And fight for something that is pretty normal.
Have you experienced any problems yourself?
You know, I never have. I'm fairly discreet about nursing my kids in public. I have a lot of support from my husband, we just don't really understand the controversy, and I don't draw attention to myself. I don't look for controversy, but for the most part, I get friendly smiles from mothers who support me, and then other people just don't notice. You know, a lot of people just don't care, but when you get one piece of criticism, it changes the way that you feel about, nursing your babies, and something that is pretty special to you, and it can kind of crush that spirit,
Now, if memory serves, it was Hobby Lobby, and if I have the wrong chain business, I apologize, but I believe it was Hobby Lobby that had a woman evicted from their store or in front of their store or maybe even arrested because they were breastfeeding?
I don't know. I don't know about that.
But that has happened.
Yes,
where
it happens.
businesses,
It happens. And people are so uninformed about the laws that protect women to nurse in public. Most states, there are laws protecting women. I know Iowa there are, to nurse in public. So, I mean, it may make people uncomfortable. It may make a business owner uncomfortable, but that really doesn't matter. It's really the woman's right to nurse her baby whenever she needs to.
Yeah. And this, in generations past, no big deal. At what point did it become a big deal? At what point did this become a problem?
Well, I think we're moving out of that trend. I hope that we're moving closer back to a more natural lifestyle where those things are kind of accepted. But I think, you know, in our country and across the globe, breasts are seen as sexual, and that's the function that we see. We don't think about, you know, their scientific function, which is to nurture and feed a child. And so when which
is kind of astounding, really.
It's really shocking.
It's not just astounding. It's wrong. It is. It's
disappointing. And so, you know, you see all over Facebook and all over any kind of social media, pictures that are very risque and things. And then you see a picture of a nursing mom, and then people are mad about it and complaining. And I don't understand it. And the idea is to get away from that, get over it however we can, so that it's not even an issue to talk about anymore.
Yeah. So now, do we have any sense of how many places around the world will be having this kind of event, August 2nd or 3rd?
You know, I don't. I know the numbers. The numbers from last year. I think there were 8,000 and something women nursing in that 1 minute across the globe, which is a tiny number.
8,000.
Yes.
What? That's not a tiny number. That's pretty good.
It's good. It's good. I know it's not reflective of how many mothers are actually nursing their babies at this period in life, but I think for the mothers that I'm trying to reach through this event, I just want them to know that we have resources in Des Moines, and we're in the Midwest, but we also have, you know, we have an awesome La Leche League that supports moms, and we have, you know, Facebook groups that help reach out to new moms who are having trouble nursing, who need the support, just to say that what they're doing is fine.
Yeah. Now there's an English gal named Holly McNish. What's it called, Maddie? Speaker, spoken word. Spoken word. I thought it was rap at first because I'm a little bit out of touch on some of these things. But she did a piece on this that is all over YouTube. Maybe you've seen it. In fact, it's really powerful, and I'd like to share it with our audience.
Absolutely.
So, folks, if Maddie is ready, we'll run that clip and give you a sense of from this young poet's perspective what some women have had to deal with on the issue of public breastfeeding.
I thought it was okay. I could understand the reasons. They said there might be a man or a nervous child seeing this small piece of flesh that they weren't quite expecting. So I whispered and tiptoed with nervous discretion. But after 6 months of her life sat sitting on lids, sipping on milk, nostrils sniffing on piss, trying not to bang her head on toilet roll dispensers, I wonder whether these public loo feeds offend her. 'Cause I'm getting tired of discretion and being polite. As my baby's first sips are drowned drenched in shite, I spent the first feeding months of her beautiful life feeling nervous and awkward and wanting everything right. Surrounded by family till I stepped out the house. It took me 8 weeks to get the confidence to go into town. Now the comments around me cut like a knife as I rush into toilet cubicles feeling nothing like nice. Because I'm giving her milk that's not in a bottle. Wishing the cocaine generation white powder would topple. I see pyramid sales pictures across our green globe and female breasts banned, unless they're out just for show. And the more I go out, the more I can't stand it. I walk into town, feel I'm surrounded by bandits, 'cause in this country of billboards covered in tits and family newsagent magazines full of it. W.H. Smith top shelves out for men, why don't you complain about them then? In this country of billboards covered in tits and family newsagent magazines full of it. W.H. Smith top shelves out for men, I'm getting embarrassed in case a small flash of flesh might offend. And I'm not trying to parade it. I don't want to make a show. But when I'm told I'd be better just staying at home, and when another friend I know is thrown off a bus and another mother told to get out of a pub, even my grandma said maybe I was sexing it up. And I'm sure the milk makers love all this fuss, all the cussing and worry and looks of disgust as another mother turns from nipples to powder, ashamed or embarrassed by the comments around her, and as I hold her head up and pull my cardi across and she sips on that liquor made by everyone's God, I think for God's sake Jesus drank it. So did Siddhartha, Muhammad and Moses and both of their fathers, Ganesh and Shiva and Brigid and Buddha, and I'm sure they weren't doing it sniffing on piss as their mothers sat embarrassed on cold toilet lids in a country of billboards covered in tits, in a country of low cut tops, cleavage and skin, in a country of cloth bags and recycling bins. And as I desperately try to take all of this in, I hold her head up. I can't get my head round the anger towards us and not to the sound of lorries offloading formula milk into countries where water runs dripping in filth, In towns where breasts are oases of life, now dried up in 2-for-1 offers, enticed by labels and logos and gold standard rights, claiming breast milk is healthier, powdered and white, packaged and branded and sold at a price so that nothing is free in this money-fueled life, which is fine if you need it or prefer to use bottles where water is clean and bacteria boiled. But in towns where they drown in pollution and sewage, bottled kids die and they know that they do it. In towns where pennies are savoured like sweets, we're now paying for one thing that's always been free. In towns empty of hospital beds, babies die, diarrhea fueled that breast milk would end, so no more will I sit on these cold toilet lids, no matter how embarrassed I feel as she sips. 'Cause in this country of billboards covered in tits, I think we should try to get used to this.
Powerful statement.
Yeah, it
Very,
is.
very
Yep.
powerful statement.
It is.
And are we making progress? I mean, do you you've been involved with this for a while? Do you see us heading in the right direction on this?
I do. I actually do see it. You know, it's with so many things, it's getting rid of the old thinking and the criticism. And, you know, the greatest advice I ever heard from someone was to never listen to the loudest voice. That's, you know, and so the people who are criticizing usually have the weakest argument. And I think it's just a matter of it just becoming more normal. And honestly, I think in the last 3 or 4 decades, it has become. I think in the last 10 years, even it's been more accepted.
But it's not just about people in developed countries becoming comfortable with it, accepting of it. Mm-hmm. There's an economic angle here too. There are big corporations that sell formula that have an economic interest in perpetuating the impression that breastfeeding is wrong. That it's not just something you shouldn't do in public because of the indiscretion that's implied. It's also not as good for you as the safety of formula.
Right. And they make sure to get their products in at the hospitals where new moms are unsure and uneducated and not feeling confident about their bodies. And it's an easy out for mothers who are struggling. And
it's not just in third world countries where, as Holly McNish pointed out, the water is unclean and you run the risk of dysentery and dying. You're killing your baby. But even in this country, doctors are kind of given formula, encouraged to recommend it. I mean, how much of that is that starting to change as well, or do we still see that as a very common thing?
I think the right physicians are there if you look for them. I know that there are physicians in the Des Moines area, and I've found one for my children that supports my nursing relationship as long as it works for me. And that is the most important thing to me in a physician, actually. You know, I mean, yes, that they can care for my child. But I think they're there if you find them. But for the most part, I think mothers go in with fear and doubt that they're feeding their baby adequately, and are they gaining enough weight, or do I need to supplement with formula? And the slightest inkling that they're unsure, those physicians say, well, maybe you ought to try to supplement. And then at that point, they begin making less milk because the baby's not emptying the breast. And then it's just kind of an endless cycle of that diminishing relationship.
So again, this is, I think, a great opportunity for people to help normalize what should be a very normal and is a very normal and natural activity. And any mother who is nursing a child is welcome to participate.
Absolutely. Yep. There's a registration quickly the day of, and if you can get there a few minutes early, all you have to do is sign and give us your email address, and then find a comfortable spot, maybe bring a blanket and join the rest of us.
So 10 o'clock Saturday, August 3rd. At the sculpture park. Anywhere in particular at the sculpture park?
There's one particular sculpture that we're meeting at. There will be balloons. There'll be a big registration table. So I will make sure that no one is confused.
Okay.
But
not that big of an area. It should be easy to find.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But there'll be a table, and just make your way on up, and I hope that everyone feels like they can come and feel welcome.
And the actual event is a minute long, from 10:30 to 10:31.
Right, exactly. Once you're latched on, you'll raise your card, and we'll get a good count. There'll be at least 3 or 4 counters there, and then there's a raffle and just fellowship, and we just want to make sure everyone feels like they belong.
By the way, it's a great name, the Big Latch On. It's a great name. I do have a doctor friend who'd recommended another name. the big clampdown.
That's funny. That wouldn't be quite as appealing, I don't think.
It's a little funny, but
right,
anyway,
right.
For what that's worth, I have friends with a sense of humor. Who
Sure,
knew?
that's
anyway.
a good thing. Yeah.
All right. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. And you're a city councilwoman.
I am.
In Osceola.
Yep. We're not quite as progressive there yet, but that's kind of a goal that I have.
Well,
so.
good.
Yes.
We'll have to talk more about that sometime. Yeah. Anyway,
absolutely.
thank you so much for
Thanks
joining
for
us.
having
And
me.
folks, there is more information about the event. I've got it posted on the Fallon Forum website at fallonforum.com. And I believe you can also find out more information about it at the La Leche League's website.
Yep. And we have Facebook pages for both.
Okay.
So
Great.
Yep.
Great. Good. Well, thank you. Good luck with that. And thank you for joining us.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Folks, we'll come back. We got a little more conversation to cover today. Wildfires. Branstad continuing to dig his political hole a little deeper. And also want to talk, I'm afraid I've got Steve King. He's at it again. I got to share a little bit about Steve King on immigration. I don't really want to, but when he goes off like he does, we just really have to let you know what he's saying, what he's thinking. Again, I want to thank the Fighting Burrito for sponsoring this segment of our show. And also a quick shout out to Community CPA and Associates. Ying Sa with Community CPA will be on this program on Friday talking about the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit. I'll be back in just 2 minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I am administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed rider, it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
That's Mary McAdams, folks, and we're back to our conversation here on the Fallon Forum. I want to thank Gateway Market for also sponsoring this segment of our show, Gateway at 20th and Woodland, our neighborhood grocery store. Also want to thank Story County Veterinary Clinic and Hawk Restaurant at East East 5th and Walnut in the East Village neighborhood. Again, please, support the businesses, the nonprofit organizations, and the events that help make this show possible. They're all local people doing good work. I only accept clients who are open, who are local people doing good things, and they help make the show possible. And it's good to remind them that you appreciate the fact that this program exists. You're probably not going to hear these conversations on the Jan Michelson Show or on Simon Conway's program. So anyway, I want to take a second to, Governor Branstad. He just keeps making it worse for himself. I mean, I just don't. Now again, people being reminded about the number of polluted waterways in Iowa and the high nitrate level we have, and the $500,000 we're spending here in Des Moines annually now, removing when we have the situation we have this year, and the $4 million we spent just building the treatment plant. Hannah Burt from Grinnell writes a great letter to the editor on this, reminding us that Governor Branstad is actively lobbying the EPA on behalf of corporate agribusiness. She calls it an outrage. I would concur. He's lobbying the EPA and the EPA has overall been a pretty good ally on trying to improve our water quality. But, again, there's a conflict here between public health, the shrimp industry in Louisiana, and corporate agriculture, who does not want any regulation when it comes to nitrates in the water, soil in the water. Yet they, of course, are happy to have the public subsidies they get for crop insurance, farm subsidies and whatnot. So Hannah writes that Branstad is not simply expressing concern over potential EPA regulations. He's actively working against the well-being of everyday Iowans in order to protect corporate ag from being held accountable for their devastation of Iowa's waterways and environment. And devastation, I don't think that's too strong of a word. I really don't. I mean, if you're a canoer like I am, you can't. I love being out on the river, but you also cannot help but notice how unclean the water is. It doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be that way. There is a balance between letting agriculture thrive and maintaining higher water quality. And again, it's going to take some effort. It's going to cost some money. But, Branstad is just siding with those interests that don't want to do anything. They like the way the status quo works because they have made a lot of money with the status quo. Anyway, I thank her for writing that letter. And all right, switching gears real quick here. I'm glad to see that there are Iowa firefighters going out west to help. It's always good when we help our neighbors. It is unfortunate that we continue to have to help our neighbors in situations like this. I had some guests at my house last night from Colorado on Ragbri, and one was talking about a fire darn close to his home, where the humidity level was at 1%. Percentage of humidity was at 1%. And the rainfall had hardly any rainfall that year at all, and thus you have basically just tinder ready to go. And apparently the wildfire season, which we hoped it was beginning to die down, is reigniting. So 60 Iowa firefighters heading that way. And unless you somehow think that it's not that it's a coincidence, ask the firefighters on the front line. One of them said recently in a PBS report that you can't find a single person fighting fire in Colorado who does not understand that climate change is a big part of the problem. Okay, so switching gears again here, Steve King, there he goes again, criticizing the efforts to try to create a pathway to citizenship for illegal immigrants, which most Americans now support. Over 65% support a pathway to citizenship. Here's what King says, quote, "For everyone who's a valedictorian," wherever that came from, "for everyone who's a valedictorian, there's another 100 out there that they weigh 130 pounds and they've got calves the size of cantaloupes." And I'm thinking, where's he going with this? Because they're hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert. He somehow, I mean, where is that coming from? There's no data on that. He's just pulling that out of the air. I don't get why this guy has continued to be reelected. And I really wish, I would love to see a strong, reasonable, credible Republican opponent challenge this guy in the primary. I think that's the way that we're going to get better representation. Because I personally would love to see Steve King go the way of Michelle Bachmann. We do not need that kind of crazy talk coming from Iowa, and we don't need it in the U.S. Congress. All right, again, folks, thanks for tuning into this program. Thanks to all the businesses that make this show possible. Thanks to Gateway Market and Cafe for sponsoring this segment. Thanks to Dan Kelly and his real estate business, and also thanks to the Fighting Burrito. Again, I appreciate all the efforts by my staff, the producer of this program, Maddie Kane, my promotions person. I'm getting my P words mixed up. My promotions person, Liz George, and also the Webcast One Live studio folk for providing this studio for our show. I'll be back tomorrow.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.